There you go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first in a series of quarterly Federation Presidents webinars. I'm Elaine Hughes, and beside me is Bridget Bowl, who's the Director of Membership. A little bit of explanation. The FP webinars are designed to enhance communication from headquarters on membership marketing results and to share the important initiatives that we are involved in. Each of these meetings will cover the current NARF membership status. Again, this isn't really important information for you all because the analysis that's done of our file helps us determine what needs to be done and what we need to stay away from. We will also share the most recent membership marketing test results. Testing in the marketing world is extremely important. It helps us determine what works for us and what doesn't work for us. So again, it is very important, and we would like to share this information with you as we go through the year. And we'll also be sharing any new important initiatives that come along or that we're involved in throughout the year. So for today's agenda, we're going to talk about the current membership status. Under that, we'll talk about reinstatements and the success that we are experiencing with our reinstatements. I think you will be pleasantly surprised what's going on here. I will be talking to you about the decline due to member deaths. Certainly this is not pleasant, but it is affecting our membership file greatly. We want to talk about the January, February 2013 gain-loss reports. There are some significant differences in these two reports and also what's going on with these reports. We want to talk about the most recent test results. Again, testing is very important to us. In particular, we want to talk about the November 2012 direct mail. This was a mailing that went out to 125,000 people. There were a couple of offers here. One was a 6-month free offer. Bridget will be talking about the front-end results of this test. Also, we offered a free downloadable Q&A guide if somebody chose to join us. She'll also be discussing the results of that. And finally, we want to talk about prospecting. This is becoming even more important to us. It's a very important initiative for us, and we want to share this with you and also talk about what you all can do to help us in this area. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bridget.
Great, thank you. Hello, again, I'm Bridget Bowl, and before we begin talking about the January and February gain-loss reports, we wanted to talk about a couple of factors that have a really large impact on the gain and loss and on total membership every month. The first one being reinstates. In 2012, we began a multi-mailing program to lapsed members, our reinstate program. As you can see here, we've really had some great success. In 2011, on average, monthly, we had a 29% reinstatement. In 2012, we were able to bring that up to 35%. And in January of 2013, it was as high as 63.4%. Now, we're not imagining we will maintain that level, but you can see that we've had great success and been able to move that bar. They're bi-monthly mailings to lapsed members, and it's working. And then the second thing we want to say about reinstates is a couple of sort of important notes. The reinstate program has raised some questions, and specifically about eNARF. And we'd like to provide some clarification here, if we may. First of all, we want to assure you that lapsed member mailings, they're being sent only to those members who have lapsed. So in other words, they're no longer members. As a matter of fact, much of our mailings to lapsed members are those that have lapsed for many, many years. We've gone back as far as 2006. With this next mailing, we'll be going back as far as 2005. A very small portion of them are more recent lapsed members. Secondly, this is the first time that headquarters actively promotes eNARF. It's as an alternative to those people who have chosen to leave the association. And then thirdly, we wanted to remind you that prior to any lapsed member receiving a mailing from us, that individual would have received an entire renewal series. So each of these individuals would have gotten 3 paper renewal notices. They would have had a last issue cover wrap on their magazine, which I'm sure many of you have not seen that, but it's big and it's bold and it's very clear that this is your last issue before you would be lapsing. And then if there's an email address on file, they actually also get 3 electronic renewal notices. These are all coming from headquarters, and they're in addition to what I know is a lot of activity that goes on at the chapter and the federation level. So all of these efforts are to keep people in their existing chapter, and it's prior to lapse. At that point, we begin our mailing. A second major factor in the gain loss numbers is, unfortunately, as Elaine had mentioned, members' deaths. We have had, in the months of January and February of 2013 alone, 1,845 deaths reported. On average, that's 31.3 per day. That's up from 23.1 per day in 2012, which is actually a 35% increase. So it's something that we're watching very carefully. It's having a great impact on our numbers. These are reported deaths, but I want to mention that it's probably a pretty fair assumption that our dropped for non-payment statistics are also rising at a similar rate, because within those are the non-reported deaths that are remaining on the file. A couple of important notes here on the member deaths. We want to make sure that you're aware of the fact that there's an important database project underway. It continues to be underway. What we're doing is identifying unreported deceased members on the life and the honorary membership files. The reason that we're doing this is to try to better reflect NARF membership reality. These files, the life and the honorary membership files, have not been cleared of unreported deaths in at least 15 years. So, of course, we're finding quite a few. With the February close, 2,098 deceased members were removed from that file. And now, as we continue, we want to give you a heads up as we continue the database project and discover new deceased members and they're removed. We're going to then see, again, reduction, a significant reduction in the membership file. Okay, so I'm sure that you have all received both the January and the February gain loss reports. The February report really was quite grim, and let's take a look at the numbers first and then talk a little bit about why that is. In January, our total membership was 268,846. By February, it was down to 263,589. Good news within those 2 months is that we did see that nice increase of nearly 1,000 in the total eNARF membership. But those total member numbers, that's what I would call startling decline, is due to a number of factors, and this next slide will begin to talk about that. Right off the top in February are those deceased members that we removed from the life member file that I just mentioned. So right off the top, we've lost over 2,000, nearly 2,100 members off of the file. The next factor is a little bit less intuitive. I'm going to try to explain it. And it has to do with the OPM mailing and bringing in large quantities of new first-time members. So each year, twice a year, in the spring and then again in the fall, we do what we call our OPM mailing. We have a list that we can mail to, and we can do a follow-up to them. Again, twice a year, spring and fall. With each of those activities, this has always been our workhorse. It's where we bring in really high volume of first-time new members. As that group, in these 2 pieces of the year, move their way through their first year, they go through the full 12 months, okay, they get 3 months later, we know we drop them. First of all, we're at a very high volume rate at that time of year. In addition to it, first-time members or first-time renewals are always, in any organization, in any renewal organization, are going to have a far lower rate of renewal response. So for that reason, they're going to drop. More of them are going to drop. A higher percentage will drop. That in addition to the high volume. So this is something we see every year. We look at this month to month, year to year, and we see each year, February, March, this activity. But the good news is it means we brought in a lot of new members. Remember that. Secondly, one needs to understand that although they've been dropped, right at that period of time they've gotten, just had their last issue cover wrap, will receive another renewal notice, and then have this, what has become a really successful lapsed member campaign, which will continue on. So many, many of these members we will bring back into membership. And then again, as you look at this from year to year, I will say one thing, piece of good news within that February gain loss number, and that's although we see these peaks every year and we have these losses every year, if you eliminate the nearly 2,100 who are removed from the life member file, we actually lost 1,000 less during this peak period than we did last year.
I think that's important to emphasize once again. Remember, if you take the almost 2,100 from the deceased list that we took out of the file, that we are still 1,000 ahead of what we were at this time last year. We lost roughly 3,000 this year. It was roughly last year it was roughly 4,000 rather. So again, this is significant and worth, I think, repeating.
As we're talking about gain loss and looking forward to upcoming gain losses, I think there's a couple of things that we need to keep in mind. One is that we should definitely anticipate continued up and downs from one gain loss to the next. And there's a couple of reasons for that, and I want to set expectations appropriately. The first is that the monthly close is a snapshot in time. It's for financial purposes, and it also happens to be where we go in and take a good look at the member file. We should. Monthly is a wonderful thing to do, but it's a snapshot. It goes from day one to day end, and it does that 12 times a year. The reality is that the new member and the reinstatements coming onto the file, those are going to wax and wane based on when we do our bi-monthly mailings. So in any given one of those months where we stopped and taken a static look, you could have a great month. It could be just as we were waiting, just as the build from the last membership mailing is coming in. We've got lapsed members reinstating, we've got new members coming in, and it can be a great month. Conversely, you can have a month where we are waning, where we have come to the end of the last of the cycle from the last mailing, and we have yet to begin with the next mailing. We will always bring in members, and we will always reinstate members on much more of an ongoing curve. So at any given month, you're going to see a wax or a wane. The second part of this, and that we consider each month as well, is the aging of the NARF membership file. Reported deaths really, quite frankly, often outpace our new member efforts. We look at this on a daily basis, and I can tell you that there are days when we've had a terrific recruitment day. But by the end of the day, we have a net loss in membership. And those are the days where the reported deaths have simply outpaced our efforts. Then we'll get to some testing. We'd like to use this forum to keep you up to date on the testing that's going on. With each mailing, we take small panels and we test new packages, new offers, perhaps new messaging, and then we want to share the results with you here. This goes back to November of 2012. We had a couple of important tests. One of them was a 6-month free offer, which I think most people had heard about. What was the objective of this test? I know that people feel we've done this in the past. It may not have worked. I want to explain a little bit about what we did here. What we want to do is, through a free offer, get a large volume of response. Now, we're going out and we're saying, would you like something for free? Clearly, your response goes up some. So we know we will bring in a far higher volume than we would with a paid offer. But then what we do, we have a very unique, dedicated conversion series in place that looks very different from a renewal series, that goes back and engages these people, have different kinds of notices, and we're working to convert them from free to paid. In the end, what we wanted to see is that we have significantly increased the net paid membership, and that it will come out higher than if we had done the control offer. That would be a successful test. This test was sent to lapsed members, to NARF prospects, and to rented list. The final test results on this will be based not only on the front end, what we call the front end, which is the response rate. How many people said, oh, yep, I will take a free membership for 6 months in NARF. But it will also be based on the back end, or the percentage of people who have converted from free membership to paid membership. We actually have the front-end results in, so we're halfway there, and I'll give you some data. Again, lapsed prospects and our in-house NARF prospects. Our lapsed members are actually 1.5 times more likely to respond to the free offer than they are to the control. We know that. It gets a little bit better. We know that the prospects from outside lists are 3 times more likely to respond to the free offer, and again, as opposed to the control offer. And then it gets better still. Our in-house prospect list on our NARF database, the prospects we're going to just keep on talking about that we want to build and build and build internally, they are 8 times more likely to respond to the free offer. So we have that the front end, and based on that, we can provide sort of a potential outcome. What might happen here? Based on that front end, if we were able to convert just 25% of those free members from free to paid membership, we'll have broken even on the mailing, and importantly, we will have added 50% more paid members than the control offer could have. It's one scenario. It is not entirely undoable. It's going to, again, I just want to say it's going to be many months before the reporting is available. And also to give you a heads up, I apologize, this last note on the slide is a little bit old. The spring OPN mailing, which has indeed mailed, does indeed include a test of the free 6-month offer. When we did this offer earlier, we had not included the OPM, so we'll do that last panel now. This slide is not all tests work, and I think it's important that we include this slide as well. At the same time, in November, we did what, of course, we thought was a good test. Basically, the offer was, when you join, we will give you access to a freely download the Q&A guide book, okay? And our objective here was to, again, significantly increase response, always our objective, this time through a very highly valued premium offer. We know how important the Q&A guidebook is to our members. We know how popular the Q&A is within the magazine. We sent that offer to lapsed members, again, NARF prospects and rented list. And the lapsed members, interestingly enough, were nearly 2 times less likely to respond to this test than to the control offer. There's a number of theories of why that is the case, but it is indeed the fact. And then in terms of our other 2 panels, which was the NARF prospects and the outside list, there really was no significant difference when we offered this valuable premium. So obviously results indicate it's not a viable test. We won't be rolling out with it.
Let me just also say here that while we are talking very specifically about one mailing and the results, it's just really giving you a sample of what's going on. Last year alone, we did 5 of these major mailings, all of them giving us some significant results one way or the other. All of them quite different in some respect. This year, we have planned 6 major mailings, one every other month, and each to 75,000 as we go through the year. So I just want to tell you that there's a tremendous amount of work going on with these mailings, and hopefully the results will pay off for us.
And I'd also add that these mailings, the reasons that we're doing them and doing them so often, obviously, is we want to continue to bring in as many members. But also, if we are able to test in small panels in each of these mailings, we're continuing to inform ourselves about what is the best thing to do next mailing out. So what we're trying to do is maximize our effort each time based on the last bit of testing.
And also in the marketing world, direct response mailings are still the #1 way to reach people and to convince them to join any association, and obviously we're trying to get them to join NARF. So that's another reason that we are so strong on our mailings, our direct response mailings.
Next, we wanted to talk a bit about our big initiative in prospecting. I know you've heard us talk a lot about it, we've written about it, and we wanted now to take a moment to sort of step back and say, you know, what is this, why is this, what are we doing with this, how can you participate in this? Now, I know many of you are very familiar with the concept of prospecting, so I apologize for those who are, but basically the way we define it, it is the effort to find and then most importantly acquire contact information for prospects or likely NARF members. A synonym to that is lead generation. You'll hear us use it often. Lead generation is most often used when we're talking about online prospecting, and you'll hear some about that as well. So they're synonymous with one another, prospecting and lead generation. So why don't we start with why do we prospect? It's for a few reasons. We need to build a very large list of targeted prospects for recruitment. That's plain and simple. We need to supplement, as you'll see in that second bullet, our limited access to the OPM list. We, in addition, have available to us rented lists from other organizations, as an example, government executives. They're very expensive, hard to make the financial model work. So we're looking to expand that list by bringing prospects into our own database that we can go back to again and again, supplementing what is a fantastic list from the OPM. The OPM list alone does not bring us in enough members to offset our losses each year. So a large, a large NARF prospect list is key to high volume acquisition. And I think that we all recognize that high volume acquisition is critical at this point. So what does headquarters do with the prospect list is certainly a legitimate question. The very first piece of correspondence is a letter that acknowledges the prospect's recent interests and, of course, invites them to join, and it's sent within a week of data entry. And quite honestly, in the past, this was pretty much the full extent of our conversion efforts here. And over the last couple of years, as we have become very strategic, brought in other principles, we've been hard at work and a lot more is going on. Now, all prospects upon data entry are also entered into a 6-part, what we call email cultivation program. So prospects are offered white papers, they take a survey, they get additional information about the association, and of course, at all points are invited to join. And sort of why do we do this? Is because we know that relevant engagement is a key factor in converting prospects to members. So we have a 6-part, again, all email series where we are engaging, inviting to join, and hoping to convert from prospects to members. In addition to that, we're doing what we were talking about often here, our bi-monthly mailings. So our prospects are then selected for each of these mailings, and the reason that we do that is because we know multiple exposure is a key factor in converting prospects to members. Now, we're watching very carefully how often we send each group, et cetera, giving ourselves an appropriate amount of space in between. But these are all the things that are happening to these prospects as we work to convert them. And for headquarters, prospecting was so important that the 2013 Strategic Membership Marketing Plan had an awful lot devoted to prospecting. This particular page was the headquarters list. There's a lot here. I'm going to draw your attention to a couple of things. The first being the very top there, online lead, that would be generation. This has been extremely successful for us. Basically what we're doing here is they are most often ads in targeted e-newsletters. Okay, so we're going online where federal employees are reading their electronic newsletters. We have ads there with an offer for a free white paper. We change those up occasionally. And what happens is they will click. They will say, yes, I'd like this free white paper. They go to a page where they have to give us some information, which is truly just a virtual M2 card, and then they can download their free white paper. It is extremely successful. We are getting hundreds of prospects a week. It's so successful that we are likely to take some of these other pieces that you see here and move our budget dollars into online lead generation, because it is really quite clear that we will never find another spot where we will get quite the biggest bang for the buck in terms of lead generation. Another that I'll just point out is the radio advertising. First quarter we did a lot of testing in a number of areas. We worked with the WTOP Mike Causey show here in D.C. The idea was to do some learning from that and to take that learning out to other areas in the country with high concentrations of federal employees. What we found was that it was not at all a good prospecting opportunity. We've paused it. We're reevaluating. We may take a different approach and look at this as an exposure model, but it is not working in terms of lead generation. I'm going to make one more point here just because we talked about it this morning. Events are critical for us. We are out there. We have upped the number of events that we're going to. We are doing what we will be asking you, going out and getting M2 cards to come back to headquarters. There has been a little bit of difficulty with this within the last few weeks. Sequestration seems to have some effect on a number of these events. Some have decided to postpone. We hope that we won't lose any being canceled this year.
Just another point to make here, too, is that during the 3 months that we've been doing the testing and now deciding where best to put our online gen efforts, we have been able to generate about 2,500 names. And this is very significant for us, obviously, in helping us prospect. And by all accounts and by reports that we've received, we are doing phenomenally well in this effort and in this area. So obviously this is paying off big time for us. I want to talk a little bit now, just switching gears a little bit, talking about prospecting and the field support. Obviously, this is where a number of you come in. And some of the things that we are implementing this year, the first is, of course, these webinars. One will be held every quarter. Right now, they're called Federation Presidents Webinars, and we obviously are hoping to expand these to others that obviously have an interest in membership. And there are others we know that you would want to bring in to these webinars. Obviously, with the new software, we're all trying to get used to it, so it was limited this time. The next thing that we've done is changed is the R&R Journal. We now have, it has been reformatted to include a good bit of information from headquarters, updates in particular on all of the prospecting initiatives that are going on. The first edition went out that covered obviously the first 3 months of this year, and it was done quite well, and it has been received quite well. So again, this will be something that will be continued with the R&R Journal. And I'm sure as we go along, if we find other things that could be included in the R&R Journal, we will also do that as well. Prospecting incentive. This is, as most of you know, we have done recruitment awards, competition awards in the past, not only at the Federation level, but particularly at the National Convention. We now want to include prospecting in that. So this provides an incentive to the field to help us do prospecting and to offer something to reward those that do a lot of prospecting for us. And the final thing here is the event package. This has been greatly redesigned, reformatted, and a new approach to this. And we think that it's going to be extremely helpful, but not only helpful for us, but helpful for you all. No longer will you have to decide, hopefully, all the things that you think and feel that you need to take with you. If we can maintain some uniformity with this, we think we can do a lot better with our prospecting. So again, Bridget's going to be talking about a lot of these things in more detail.
Do this one?
Oh, that's right. Let me just continue before I do turn it over to Bridget. We want to talk for our NARF members. We know that our NARF members, in a lot of cases, are our best recruiters, but you can also be our best prospectors. So that we ask that all encounters with potential members be viewed not only as a recruiting opportunity, but also absolutely as a prospecting opportunity. A lot of times when you go to these events, you will find that you only recruit maybe 5 or 6 or maybe 10, depending on the size of the event. And sometimes you feel like failures. This is not the case at all, because there's a lot more opportunity here for prospecting. Because people, particularly if they don't know about NARF, are certainly very reluctant to join us. So this is where prospecting becomes extremely important. And again, a new recruit, always important, of course it is. But prospects are absolutely worth their weight in gold. It helps us to build a great file here. A local event, again, you may recruit just a handful or very few recruits, but you may have the opportunity, again, depending on the size, hundreds of prospects. So this is where it's actually very successful. It is a grand slam for us. The M2 cards received at headquarters received the royal treatment. They immediately go in. This is, and by the way, the M2 card is a contact information card from a prospect. This information is immediately entered into our database. They get, very quickly, they will get an acknowledgement letter. They will begin to get a series of engagement emails. And then there will be many opportunities for them to join. They will also be in our database, and as we continue our mailings, they will be included in a lot of our mailings. So it never stops. We never stop trying to get these people to join us if they don't join us initially. One of the other things that we might suggest for you all to be able to collect M2 cards is to offer raffles. It's a good way to get information. And some examples would be perhaps a free membership, a gift card. There's a number of things out there that I know that would not cost a great deal of money that you could offer in order to get the contact information that we so much need.
Okay, so here is the new recruitment prospecting kit. In order to really streamline both recruiting and prospecting, we've designed this kit that we're really going to urge people to use. The objective here, we believe that if we keep the exchange focused with a potential member, we're in the best shape. So by limiting materials and having a rehearsed elevator speech, which I'll talk about in just a moment, we'll keep the conversations focused and provide manageable, digestible information for the prospect. So in other words, I think everyone's been to this event, and it's not just NARF. I've been to many other kinds of industry association gatherings where there are all kinds of materials laid out across a long table. And an event goer who's in a big hurry says, oh, NARF, not quite sure who they are, hello, collect. And the reality is that the more material that we give to a prospect, the less likely they are to read any of it. We haven't targeted them. We haven't said, this is the most important information. This is the introductory information. This is what you really need to know about us. And this kit is an opportunity to do that. The kit itself includes the most recent issue of NARF magazine. They actually have a new one since then. The new brochure, the F-135, this one has a date of 1/13 to make sure you get the most up-to-date version. It includes the prospect card that Elaine was talking about that we can send back to headquarters. And then when we send out these group of kits, we'll also send you, and mind you not to give to a prospect, for yourself, a couple samples of the NARF elevator speech. And let me talk about that a little bit. I know that a lot of people are familiar with this, but for those who aren't, I'll go through it. Elevator speech, really, it is simply a summary, or in this case, the very best way to present NARF and the value of membership within a very limited time frame. Because if you think about it, none of us often have this luxury of relaxed conversation, extended discussion with a potential NARF member, where we can talk about all the wonderful things that we have done and have a dialogue. Instead, if we're true to ourselves, more often, it's a really hurried pitch. You've got a very busy attendee at a health fair, a brief encounter with someone in the grocery store, et cetera, et cetera. And since that time is so limited, a clear, highly focused elevator speech is going to make certain that you don't even have to think about it. You know it. You can just come out and use that time really wisely. Now, certainly, I was going to provide a sample elevator speech here. Certainly, no one must use that one. What I'm going to suggest is that they don't. They create one of their own. So I want to talk about some of the key questions that a really great elevator speech has just got to answer. One of them, of course, would be, what is NARF? What does NARF do? What are the benefits of NARF membership? And why should I join? And so I'm going to walk you through a little bit of this sample speech. Okay, in terms of what is NARF, it's going to be very important for a lot of people that they don't know what NARF means. NARF is the National Active and Retired Employees Association. We all know that it is the only organization solely dedicated to protecting and preserving the pay and benefits of all workers and retirees. Okay. Beyond that, I think we want to help people by honing in on what are our primary roles in their lives. Okay? What is NARF's primary role for you? We are your legislative voice, and it's the one we talk about most often. We have in-house, very influential lobbyists. They advocate on Capitol Hill on behalf of the federal community. And it's very important that people understand that. Most do. But it's also an objection area, because there are those who will either in their own minds or vocally say, you're going to do that whether I'm a member or not. So the second role becomes very important as well. We are your information resource. NARF is the place to go. We provide clear information and trusted guidance on very complex federal benefit issues. I hear often where people have a question. It's very difficult for them to find the answer. It's difficult to get through to OPM, et cetera, et cetera. They pick up the phone, they call here, and they've been able to move from A to B because they have their answer. We provide tons of Q&A in the magazine. We are an information resource. And then what are your benefits? What do you get? And I think that the first thing to do is to pick up that magazine and show them, you get NARF magazine. It's beautiful. It's been redesigned. It is totally focused for these individuals. And it is a prime source of information and guidance, not only on critical legislation, but also on benefit issues. In addition to that, they have access to the Federal Benefits Service Specialists for answers to their personal questions. I think that this is probably a benefit we least use and is perhaps most important for people out there. In addition, of course, they're going to get their legislative alerts. They're going to know about what's directly impacting the federal community. They even have an online legislative action center. We make it easy for them to contact their member of Congress. And then in addition, of course, we have some member-only eligibility for scholarships, disaster relief, et cetera. And so when you put it into a nutshell, really, when you join NORF, you protect your earned pay and benefits, you ensure that you get trusted guidance on your complex questions, and you support the federal community. I just wanted for a moment to break out the new brochure here a little bit so we can sort of ensure everyone that there is plenty of information and it's sort of very targeted to the most important questions people might ask. It answers what is NORF? Can I get my benefit questions answered? What are the benefits of NORF membership? Who can join? And for a lot of people, I know they were very concerned that this be a part of it, and it is. It's a full page. What are NORF's recent legislative accomplishments? In addition to, it is inserted within the brochure is a full membership application and a postage-paid envelope. They've got everything they need to understand who we are, make the decision to join, and toss it into the mail. And that's sort of what we were going to talk about today.
Right. So yes, this does conclude our first Federation President's webinar. Thank you for viewing this today. At the end of the webinar, you will be presented with an evaluation to help us to answer a few questions and to provide some comments. If you have difficulty with this, you can always email either myself or Bridget with your comments or recommendations or questions, and let us know what you think of this. Certainly, we want to improve these as we go along through the year. So again, we hope that this first webinar has proven to be helpful to you. And that concludes our first webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.